Hi everyone! In this video we will factor a trinomial with a equals 1. Factor t squared minus 10t minus 39. The a equals 1 comes from the general or the standard form where the coefficient in front of x squared is a, b is the coefficient in front of x, and c is the coefficient with or the term with no x. And so we can see looking at ours that there isn't a number in front of the t, so there is an implied 1 here because 1 times t squared is just t squared. To factor that, we will take our c, or the last term, and factor it completely, finding all of the factors that will make 39. So we'll come over here, and we always start with the number 1 and the number itself, and then we find all of the other factors. This is odd, so it's not divisible by 2, but it is divisible by 3. And 3 goes into 39 13 times. And actually, because those are both prime and there's nothing else that will go into 13, we're done. Those are all the factors of 39. Now we can go and find out what signs we need to use. Looking at the last term, if this is negative, then the signs of the two factors will be different. And then, because we know they're different, one's positive and one's negative, we look at the first, or the sign to the middle term, and if this is also negative, then we know that the larger sign is also negative. The larger number has a negative sign. So we're going to go over to our right-hand side and fill in where all of our larger numbers have a negative sign. And because they need to be different, the smaller numbers will be positive. Now as we combine those or add those together, we're looking for a combination that will give us negative 10. So we add our first two together. Positive 1 minus 39 gives us negative 38, and that's not negative 10. So we'll move to the next one. Positive 3 minus 13 gives us a negative 10. That tells us that the two factors we will use for our factoring are positive 3 and negative 13. Those are the numbers that we will use to replace negative 10 and then factor by grouping. So we'll have t squared. Now we're replacing our negative 10t with our two factors here. So we have plus 3t minus 13t, and then we'll finish with minus 39. Now we're going to go ahead and factor by grouping by finding the greatest common factor. So we'll group our first two and our second two. Now some may ask, did I need to do the 3 first and then the 13, or could I have done the 13 and then the 3? It doesn't matter. You can do those in whatever way you want, whatever order. I just went ahead and did the 3 and the 13 in the order that I found them. And so that's what I stuck with. So now in our first two terms, I can see that the greatest common factor is a t. So I'm going to take the t out, and I kind of curved mine so that it doesn't look like an addition sign. And t squared divided by t is t, and then positive 3t divided by t gives us positive 3. And then the greatest common factor between negative 13t and negative 39, because they're both negative, the greatest common factor will be negative, and they're both divisible by 13, leaving us with t, and this is plus 3, because the negative divided by negative is positive, and 39 divided by 13 is 3. Once we've completed that, we're going to now look for the greatest common factor again between these two larger terms. Again, this term divided by this term. And we can see that the greatest common factor is the binomial that we found when we factored everything else out, which is t plus 3. If we've done it correctly, this should work every time where you have a binomial that will factor out for the greatest common factor. This is what happens when you factor by grouping. And we're left with t and minus 13. So we'll put our next binomial, which is t minus 13, what's left, and we've now completed factoring our trinomial with the coefficient of a equals 1, and we're all done.